Chance and I are down here at the marsh unit today. We're gonna go in and kind of do a little bit of a hunt breakdown of that hunt I had. I think it was the beginning of November down here on the marsh where I saw those two really big bucks and a bunch of those spikes. So we're gonna go down there, just kind of talk about that hunt, talk about how we kind of found the spot and all kinds of details about that hunt. And then we're also gonna do a little bit of shed hunting as we work our way through there. So that's our plan for today. Hopefully we can find some sheds and then learn a little bit more about this property. So right now we're just kind of working our way down the edge of the marsh. This is a part of kind of two marshes. I set up over one marsh. This is a different marsh. There's kind of some edge habitat that works its way down from here that kind of leads into where we were hunting and kind of where that first big buck came from. So that's why we kind of wanted to walk through here. We're just kind of getting an idea of what this stuff looked like back in here. We got a bigger marsh out here that you can kind of see out in front of me. Then there's just this kind of edge habitat that works back up that way. Back up there is where I set up. So we're trying to push through here, see if we can't see any sign that tells us, why that buck was coming from this way, if he was bedding in here, or if he was just traveling through. I haven't seen very much sign right now. Found another stand right back there. So we'll just keep pushing, kind of zigzagging through some of this stuff, but we'll just keep walking this edge along the edge of this marsh and hopefully look for some sheds. One thing that we're kind of always touching on is transitions, because there's just so many different kind of definitions of transition. But one that I've been following right down here on the edge of the marsh. You can kind of see we've got the edge of the marsh that runs right through there. And then we've got this trail that runs right here that's paralleling the marsh. So it comes from all the way back there, paralleling the marsh that's out here, and then keeps running and runs this way. And this, I'm guessing, is going to end up running in to where we were hunting. So that's just another example of those transitions that we're always following and looking at. And if you were coming in with a stand on your back like you're hunting, that's why you pinpoint these transitions, because there's a rub right up there on that little cedar tree. So they're coming through here, walking this transition as they're going to and from bedding areas. And as you can see this sign that's through here. They're back in off that transition just a little bit. So chances back up in there a little bit farther. So I'm not sure what he's seen for sign or if he's seen trails, but I'm willing to guess there's probably not a lot of trails all the way back up that way. The trail that they're using is right here on this transition. So we'll keep following this transition, keep following that back in to where we were hunting this fall. Like I mentioned, there's that rub right here. You can see him just following the edge of this transition with the marsh right out there, back in here about 10 or 15 yards. Just following along that transition. No, you're right on your transitions. It's so steep. I don't know, what, 20, 30 feet up. It's so steep and hilly that you can't, this is not conducive to walking. So they're just, where this drops off is about right here. It's that flat, another transition. So you have, not only do you have the terrain transition, habitat transition, you have this really steep terrain transition, and they're both kind of within 20 yards here in this little strip, so it's kind of just running this way. Kind of a pinch point too, where this terrain transition meets the habitat transition. You can't walk up there, like you can't get through. There's no trails up there. They're all down here along this edge. So, and I mean, that's something to look for too on a map that you can pinpoint if you're going in blind somewhere. As you see this habitat transition that we've got back here along the marsh. And then you've got this terrain transition that runs right back up here, and you can see it pinches down right here, and there's actually a lot of sign right down in here, rubs right there, so a good place to start, especially during the rut or something like that. Two transitions that meet. We've made it back here into the marsh. You can see behind me, this is the marsh we were hunting. I was actually hunting right back up there behind that kind of pin oak that you can kind of see right up in there, and he came out from right back over here, came down this edge, and then came out into some of these willows at the time. You can tell there's a rub on that tree, and then as we get, there's another rub right there, and a couple rubs back in there. So
As we get back in there, you can see some of that, but these willows make good bedding cover, especially at the time of year I was in here. Still a lot of cover in there. They can bed in there pretty good and get away from a lot of people, but they were following that transition. So that transition that we were on, that we were talking about back there on the edge of that marsh, that habitat transition, that's what that buck was following when he was coming up through here and come out to this marsh. He was following that transition as he made his way out here. And obviously I should have set up on that transition better, because I was set up, like I said, back up in there. And I should have been farther down where this marsh transition meets this marsh transition meets that transition that we were following back on the other side, which would have put me right in there, put me right in the perfect spot to be able to kill that buck. So should have followed my own advice and set up on that transition a little bit farther down than I did. But we'll get in here, we'll look at some of these rubs and some of this bedding back in here, see if we can't find some sheds back in here, talk a little bit more about that hunt. There's a whole bunch of deer sign right back here on this trail that they follow. Still, again, right down the edge of this habitat transition. We've got the willow trees over here, meet these cedar trees. They're still walking those transitions. It's just kind of that natural travel route. So even if you're going in somewhere and you see a little bit of a transition, has set up on the transition as opposed to back away from it a little bit, because they're probably going to walk that transition more times than not. You can see here, we've got rubs right there. We've got a bunch of rubs right there. We've got a big giant rub right there. We've got another rub right there. So a whole bunch of buck sign right back in here in these willows, which is obviously what we expected. Rub right there, rubs right there, another rub right there. Yeah, right on the corner.
Right there, right there, right there, right there. Right there.
I'd say they stand on this corner.
Like that whole tree. Right there, right there, right there, right there, right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right there. I'd say they stand on this corner quite a bit, and this whole tree right here's been destroyed. That's been destroyed. All these little trees on this corner. This corner is probably better, I guess, if they're coming out. Right. I mean, there's a bunch back there, but there's, again, more transitions that run back up into there. So I guess kind of simply, put in simple terms about what happened on the hunt and what I did wrong, kind of what I would change, is obviously, I've said it before, I'd have moved closer, looked for that fresh sign, because it was the beginning of November. There should have been fresh sign and scrapes, and I did set up over a fresh scrape. I just didn't set up over the right scrape, and I didn't want to push. That's kind of the fine line between pushing too far and, you know, crossing the trails that a buck's going to come in on, and then pushing far enough to get where you need to go. But if I would have looked over there, I'd have seen those scrapes and pushed farther. So I guess the thing that I would have done is been a little bit more aggressive, pushed a little bit farther, and kind of read those transition lines a little bit better when I got in here. But I guess our steps afterward were to try to get around and get over here. I guess first I came in that night or the next day and set up right over that sign where that buck was, because obviously that's where he was walking. I figured if something else was coming through, checking those scrapes, they'd walk that same transition. Set up over that, didn't see anything, but the other place that all those deer went was right back here behind me on this other marsh transition. So again, they're following that transition. They're coming from where they left all that sign right back in here, where I'm guessing there's some bedding back up in there on the private. They're following this transition and coming back and through over here. So that was the next thing that I did, is try to get up and get set up over here.
And the other thing Brody's talking about, this transition, and that they were headed up in here, and you can see in the footage, there's deer coming out of there. They come over here and they come back, and they're kind of in the trails that we've seen through here all lead up into there. And when we go over there in a little bit, guess what's over there? It's another transition. There's a swamp transition, cedar trees, and you got cornfield on the other side.
And so a terrain transition too.
Yeah, and terrain. So there's 3 transitions again that all come together. Where were the deer headed from this one transition down the other one? So again, it's just, especially in swamp type habitat, but anywhere, transitions are just key as far as where the deer are going to travel and walk.
Yeah. So, and like Chad said, with the deer walking back and forth across here, like I was mentioning, that wind was tricky because we couldn't have anything blowing back this way or out into the marsh. So we had to kind of wait for the right wind. Went in there and hunted. I think Chance saw one of the bucks that I saw that day again, back out there in that cornfield. I came back in and hunted, and I don't think I seen anything. Moved a little bit farther back and saw a spike buck chasing a doe. But like Chance was mentioning about those habitat transitions and kind of where those points meet are good spots to set up. If you look back in hindsight, and if you're looking at it, the two spots where all those habitat transitions come together are the two best spots to set up on this marsh. So you've got the one we've talked about back there with this transition, the one from that other marsh, and this one that runs right here. And if you look at this one over here, the next best spot is to set up right over here. And you've got this transition that runs through here. You've got where they're coming from back over here. You've got corn transition on the backside, and then there's a habitat or a terrain transition that runs back in there that you can't see. So there's another kind of point of transitions right back in there. So the two best spots, right where that habitat and all those transitions meet, and then right back over here where all those transitions meet again. So in hindsight, looking at it, those are two spots. If you're looking at a map, if you're coming in scouting quick, find where all those habitat transitions meet, and it's usually a pretty good spot to start.
That's gonna be a wrap on this video. I think we're gonna go try to do a little bit more shed hunting. We probably won't film a whole lot of it unless we find some sheds, so we'll take the GoPros with us, and if we find something, we'll show you here at the end of the video. But that's just a quick look at that hunt. Kind of broke it down a little bit more. You can kind of see it in person, kind of show you some of those features and some of those things we were looking for. So we're gonna try to go around to some of those spots where we have these encounters, do a few more of these videos just to break them down a little bit. They might be fairly quick or fairly long, but just trying to get out there, show you kind of what those hunts were like and the things we were looking for. So thanks for watching, and as always, remember to like this video and subscribe.